The French defence feels a little bit strange, me doing a video against the French defence, as I'm much more used to playing it on the black side. The French has been one of my main weapons for most of my life, so I know it incredibly well. And the amazing thing is that even though I've played it now for a long time, it's going to embarrass myself if I say how many years. Oh my words, 35 years. Yeah, it's a long time. I was amazed that I haven't seen the line that we're recommending in this course. Absolutely bizarre. I've seen so many gambits. I've seen so many weird tries, and I feel I know it well. But if my opponent had played this against me, and I consider myself a French expert, I would have been a bit stumped, because it's a recent gambit idea, and it's also an idea of the world champions. So you can't get stronger than that. In the last year or so, he played this, and the world champions played it, and that is why we're going to recommend it. And the French, of course, is one of Black's main options. And I mean, originally I wanted to suggest knight f3, the wing gambit here, and this kind of thing. But the issue with this is it's not so much if they take, which goes into positions we've seen, but it's that Black has a lot of quite decent sidelines, which I always hate. For example, d4 is one move that really annoys me, and I've never found a way to really deal with this one. And we've got to consider we are trying to go into gambits, but what happens if our opponent can refuse it in a good way? And that's something we've also bared in mind throughout this course. We want to, and another thing I wanted to do, I didn't want to give your opponent many ways to decline the gambit. In most of the lines we're going for, we're trying to force him to take it, because that's what we want. It's a gambit course. We want to have some fun. I also considered b3 here, but after this move, bishop b2, this is another gambit line. Black doesn't have to take on e4, but even if Black does, Black's actually doing well if he follows a game with David Eggleston from the British Championships, which I was there to see. So I don't believe this one. And there's lots of ways to, again, not accept it. Knight f6 is just a good move. And you have to go here. This is no gambit. So Richard pointed out this Carlsen game to me, and I was like, wow, yeah, that's the one. And we talked about the main ideas in this in the model game at the start of the course, and those model games are there to give you an overview of what is going to be in this course, the lines recommended. Now, before we get to those positions that are seen after d5 in the main line, c5, and now c3, and now knight c6, knight f3, queen b6, or bishop d7. Before we get to these mainline positions where we go bishop d3, and we're playing this kind of weird Milner-Barry gambit where we're not, the Milner gambit properly is something along the lines, let's say they take here, go bishop d7, castles, and then they take here. You know, if this kind of stuff occurs, this is not what we're recommending. This is like a lot of theory on this. What we're doing, if there's ever a capture here, we're kind of playing this weird idea with a knight just coming this way, right? Which I haven't seen before, this kind of concept of bringing the knight like this at the right moment. We'll have a look at these main lines more in the next video or two. But to start with, let's have a look at what happens if Black plays the French defence advanced, but aims to play it in a different manner. So he doesn't play the main line moves. Quite rare options, basically. Another reason we've gone for e5 is because structurally, this is a nice position, as Aliekin showed in a number of his games. Aliekin, if he could get this pawn structure, he was unstoppable. You look at his games, ex-world champion, and he won so many games with the pawns here. And I've always found that I really enjoy getting my pawns here, and especially at lower level. If Black doesn't do something against these pawns, it will just give you a lovely attack anyway on h7. So it's like a nice pawn structure to go for, and it's simple for club players to remember. Just push the pawn, the advance. It's consistent, it's aggressive. Now c5 is played in about 90% of games, so you're probably not going to get many other moves here, but I do want to cover them a little bit here. You can have a look at the move trainer. We're just going to touch upon them in this video, go over them in the move trainer a little bit. I wouldn't waste too much time on them. You're unlikely to get them. Knight c6 is just, if I saw this, it'd be, okay, black's only idea is to go f6, because otherwise, black has to do something about these pawns here. You can't let the white pawn sit there. So we go bishop d3. We want to, well, not here. We want to go bishop d3. We don't want to allow knight b4. So we go c3 first. And now f6 is the only move. If black plays anything else, you just do normal moves. And the problem in these kind of positions is that after f4, a bit like that wing gambit, you're never going to break this barrier because you need to go c5. Black's play in the French is normally against your pawn on d4, this pawn here. And black can't attack this pawn here. He normally goes c5, queen b6, and tries to get the knight here. Everything attacks here. But now we just got very good space advantage. So f6 is a more active try, but we've got a few ways to get a pleasant advantage. And I like now bishop d3. And this is just very simple. We can play f4 at some moment. And if pawn takes, we have queen h5 check. And this is just the idea. So knight c6, just I've never seen this in a game. If someone plays knight c6, probably starting out in chess. That's harsh, isn't it? But maybe true. Now, bishop d7 is a bit more interesting because black can still play c5 here. But the other idea in the French defense, I hope most of you understand that in any opening, you've got to work out your good and bad pieces. Our bishop, fantastic. Our light squared bishop. Our opponent's bishop on c8, bad. It's not like a Caro-Kann when the bishop's over here. This is a bad piece. So bishop d7 sometimes has the idea of trying to go a6 and swap it off like this. Again, very rare. We can go knight f3 here. In these lines, we're not going knight e2. It's different to the wing gambit. And if c5, we go c3, we're back into what we've seen. And if a6, insisting on this move, well, we don't really need to worry about it. We can try something like c4 if you want to play, uniquely. I would even play h4 because I see my opponent's going here, and this is a very useful move. I'm not joking. But c3 is also sensible, and let's just let black do this. And now we're going to take that one and just castle. And even though black's got rid of these bishops, I do like white's setup. And we can even go for a quick attack over here now. Let's just have a look at some moves, like h6 is one way to stop that. And now how are we going to play this? Well, in this case, it is the f-pawn we want to use. And we want to get that knight out the way. Now it can't come there. I'm probably going to bring it to d3 and shove the f-pawn. And this is very nice. And yeah, again, nice position. I mean, it's not winning, but it's nice. So bishop d6, not nice. Another way to try and do that is b6. And again, there's many moves we can play here, but I like c3 first because there's a little trick here. Black's trying to go bishop a6, but if he plays it now, of course, we can win that knight. So black has tried queen d7. This is actually an idea I used to play sometimes in the French. And now a very modern plan. We can't stop bishop a6 now. So gaining space with h4. And I say modern. And this is something a lot of Armenian grandmasters have played when they rarely get this line. I say, this is very rarely played. But it's just a nice way. You're doing two things. You're using this pawn to create weaknesses. And also, you want to actually often bring your rook to h4, then to one of these two squares. So let's just have a look at bishop a6. The other lines you can look at in the move trainer. I'm not going into them deeply here. This is, rare lines. If you really want to cover them, the move trainer. General ideas is what the videos are for. I just want to point out the point of this h4 move against this idea. And now we can take this move in one, play h5, gaining more space in the position. Black can now at least play c5. And here I would play knight e2. Which square do you move it to? Well, I think now I probably want to keep this option open, and I have more space and an easy game. If black doesn't do anything, let's say he plays knight e7, I'm going to develop my pieces. I'm going to bring the other knight. The other knight looks okay on this square. And when I get it to that square, black hasn't got much play. And if he ever tries to castle this way, we're going to have this little h6 move to open it up. And this looks very nice for us. If black plays f6 immediately, which seems tempting, then we can secure that pawn. And after something like knight e7 again, well, this knight d2. And this seems like a nice development way. And this pawn's always got the chance of moving, but we don't need to use it straight away. We're waiting for the opportune time. So going back, after e5, c5, I feel it's best. We keep our pawn structure intact with this one. And now knight c6 is clearly the right way to play. If b6, with the same idea we've seen, well, h4 yet again. And this has actually happened by Layla against Stockfish in 2020 Internet Championships. And after some moves, well, now black decides not to swap bishops. Okay, so we can now go back to a normal plan, but there's no queen b6, bishop d7, and black mixing up lots of lines here. We can castle, and I just want to show you the potential of this position. And now, very nice move. And I think this is where Magnus Carlsen got the main idea for this gambit from. I really do. Or the computer. I don't know if, did the computer come first or Magnus? And here, taking this square allows knight b4. But look what white does. White allows that pawn to sit there, and the computer, Layla, just plays bishop f4. And this, if it's taken, allows the knight to come in. And this is the kind of gambit we're going to see. Modern, very modern idea. Actually, Stockfish did not like that, played a6 instead, and now a3. So we're threatening to take here, stopping knight b4. So black had to take here. And yes, we're a pawn down, but this kind of compensation was absolutely brilliant for white in the game. Long-term compensation in that computer game. Let's have a look. The bishop came to e3. d4 doesn't work. I've now got to work it out because of knight takes, and bishop e4. And this is very good. So the queen has to move, and now just rook e1. Now knight takes here, fails to some knight d5, opening the lines. So knight e7, and now b4 positionally. And after h6 here, h5, queen b7, and bishop f4. And this was, again, ongoing compensation, which the computer demonstrated, which is quite impressive for a computer. And when you can see that even without this pawn, it's very hard. Our h-pawn does a great job of stopping knight here. Black's very cramped, very similar to the compensation we're going for. Later on, we want to move our knights to these squares here and use our space advantage. Very interesting. So knight c6 is the main move. What else? Okay, well, queen b6 here. Knight f3 is our move. And now bishop d7 has some independent value trying to go here. We're going to go bishop d3, hoping for knight c6 back into our main lines. And if bishop b5 is played, then we will actually have a look at this in the theory section coming up, where we're suggesting we take on c5. This is, again, slightly different to our normal gambit lines. We don't normally take on c5 because we're just allowing black to take there, and we're just quickly developing. We're actually saying in these lines, it's very unique. What we're saying, well, we'll come to it a bit later on, is that we want this pawn to take our pawn so we can get a knight to that square. A bit like a Caro-Kann. And now knight to c6. We go knight to f3 and queen b6. We're playing bishop d3. And, well, I think we'll come to the main lines a bit later on and look at the other setups. But all of these little moves here, I certainly, they shouldn't concern you. If you want to have a look at the main ideas we're going to demonstrate, do make sure you've looked at that model game first, that Magnus Carlsen played, before we get into theory. I think it's nice to have an overview of your plans before we actually try to get to what I say is the memorizing and also looking at it deeply. So go back to the model game, and we're going to get to the main theory of the French defence, this modern gambit, in the next video.